The world is nervously watching Sri Lanka, which is battling its worst economic and political crisis. A lot has happened in the last 24 hours. The island nation has been put under state of emergency. The re-elected Deputy Speaker has resigned again. There have been reports emerging of a Lankan Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa's resignation. And amid all this, the Sri Lankans have taken to the streets, vehemently demanding the resignation of the Rajapaksas. Our next report details the sequence of events in the past 24 hours. On Friday, re-elected Deputy Speaker of the Parliament resigned from his post within 24 hours of being re-elected. The Deputy Speaker's resignation comes after weeks of protest against the Rajapaksas. Few hours before the Deputy Speaker's resignation, police fired tear gas on students and trade unionists who were attempting to storm the Parliament, demanding the resignation of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, after which the Sri Lankan Parliament Speaker decided to adjourn the session until May the 17th. Not like the chaos and anarchy that had unfolded in the island nation, in a matter of few hours was enough. There were then reports that emerged which suggested that during a special cabinet meeting in Colombo, the Sri Lankan president had asked his brother, who is also the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Mahinda Rajapaksa, to resign. However, the Sri Lankan Prime Minister's office has said that there are no plans of Mahinda Rajapaksa's resignation and that the President has not asked him to step down. Meanwhile, sources also say that Mahinda Rajapaksa will make a special statement on Monday over this statement. But that's not all. As the clock struck midnight, Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa declared a state of emergency. It is also important to note here that all the statements till now have been coming from the offices of the Sri Lankan Prime Minister and the President. There has, however, been no public statement made by President Gotabaya and Prime Minister Mahinda amidst all the political drama unfolding in the island nation. It is the Sri Lankans that are suffering the most. Taking to Twitter, Sri Lankan cricket legend Mahila Jayawardena slammed the Deputy Speaker's resignation, calling the process to elect him again waste of time and money. The cricket legend further echoed the clarion call for the resignation of the Rajapaksas. The back and forth on the post of Deputy Speaker highlights the political apathy in Lanka, while the people continue to protest the lack of basic amenities. Not only the ruling class, but the opposition too remains silent, with no official word coming from any camps and no clarity of when or even how will the country resolve the worst economic crisis in its history. And for more on this, we are being joined by Jehan Pereira. He is the Executive Director of National Peace Council of Sri Lanka. Pereira, welcome to WION.
Thank you for having me.
Since you are working for the Peace Council, why has it taken so long for peace to prevail in the country, and who should take the blame for the escalation of crisis in Sri Lanka?
Well, peace in Sri Lanka has been in question for a long time, and that has been mainly on account of the ethnic conflict that pitted the Tamils against the Sri Lankan state. And although the war has ended, the original problem, the roots of the problem still remain unaddressed because they can only be addressed through a political settlement. But as for today's crisis, this crisis has been precipitated by the economic collapse of the country. In the last month, prices have risen by between 50 to 200%, where basic staples are concerned, where medicine is concerned, where fuel is concerned. And not only that, there's shortages. There are huge lines, long lines every day outside the petrol stations. It is very tragic. And because of this, the people have been asking the government to resign, the leadership to resign, which I think is quite reasonable, because anyone who has led this country to this downfall, this precipitous downfall, has to take responsibility. They are the people in charge. So I think it is reasonable that people should be demanding that the leadership that led us to this sorry past, even though the roots of that too come from the past, but these are the people who are now in charge and they don't have a plan, then right. They must step down.
Pereira, let me ask you this. Sri Lanka is currently staring at bankruptcy, despite countries like India stepping up assistance to the country, which critics argue that The help is not trickling down to the citizens. The government has stuck to their guns, which makes someone ask, if the government sees all these problems and is not doing enough to find solutions, then who or what will rescue Sri Lanka?
As Sri Lankans, we are very grateful to India for the support it has given us. If not for India, I think the situation would be much, much worse, because we need basic foodstuffs. Because we import that, and we need the petrol, the fuel. Without petrol, without diesel, our farmers cannot farm, our generators cannot run. So India's support actually goes to the people. But there is also truth in what critics are saying, because India gave us a credit line which it intended for essentials, for the food, for the medicine, for the petrol, for the diesel, for our people. And we saw that some of this money has been now used to buy steel. We can't understand it. The Bar Association of Sri Lanka has protested. I think they're taking a case to the court that the government is misusing the money. So even in this terrible crisis, there are people in the government who are trying to serve personal agendas. Another example, when we are facing this enormous crisis, our airline, our loss-making airline, all the time it is making a loss. It is planning to lease some 20-odd planes at this time. It's incredible, where there is COVID, where we don't have enough fuel, where there are mass protests in the country where tourists are not going to come. And we are trying to lease 20 airlines. So this government is not behaving responsibly. And we see it in the fact that the deputy speaker, he resigns, then he seeks re-election, and then he resigns again. It makes no sense. We see it in the fact that the president announces, or is reported to announce, that the prime minister is going to step down, and the prime minister then says, no, I'm not going to step down. This has happened at least 5 times. So it just shows lack of coherence, lack of a plan. We need that. And if
Pereira,
this government...
with all these problems, my question has not still been answered. How and what will rescue Sri Lanka?
What will rescue Sri Lanka is that there has to be a change of government leadership. And that's in the short term. And there should be an all-party, and this is very much agreed, there should be an all-party interim government established under a new prime minister, at least under a new prime minister, and that within a short space of time, within a limited framework, less than a year, that there should be elections. And a new government should be elected with a mandate from the people.
I've been talking to Jehan Pereira, who is the Executive Director of National Peace Council of Sri Lanka. Thank you very much for giving us time and for talking to WION today.
Thank you. Thank you, WION.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.